Good evening and thank you for joining us. After weeks of uncertainty, the Scotties Tournament of Hearts has reportedly been given the green light by the province and health officials and will begin on January 28th at the Fort William Gardens. Sources have told TVT News that the National Women's Curling Championship will be headed inside a bubble for the second straight year in an effort to limit the spread of COVID-19. Much like last year in Calgary, curlers, volunteers, and tournament staff will be kept isolated from the public, and no fans will be permitted inside the gardens. Thunder Bay's Krista McCarville rink will represent Northern Ontario in the now expanded 18-team field. An official announcement from Curling Canada is expected by tomorrow. The gardens will be transformed from a hockey arena into a high-level curling facility. Most of that work will start this weekend for the event that begins in just 9 days. A murder suspect is now in custody following a shooting death at a Westford apartment complex back in November. A 17-year-old male from Cambridge, Ontario was located and arrested in his home city yesterday after a Canada-wide warrant was issued. The youth is being charged with first-degree murder in the death of 31-year-old Conrad Bannon of Thunder Bay. The deadly shooting took place just after midnight on November 4th at the Spence Court apartment complex on Amelia Street West. The youth has appeared in bail court via video, and arrangements are being made to transport the suspect to the city for his next court appearance. The police investigation is still active. Anyone with information is asked to contact City Police or Crime Stoppers. Another person in the district has died of COVID-19, according to the Thunder Bay District Health Unit. It's the third COVID-related death this month, and COVID-19 admissions at the regional are up as well. The number of COVID-19 patients at the Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Centre has risen slightly since Tuesday, moving from 21 to 23. 6 of those patients are in the ICU. There's also another outbreak at the hospital, this time in the Transitional Care Cedar Unit. 2 other sections are also in outbreak, Adult Mental Health and the 3A Unit. Today's COVID-19 death is the 73rd of the pandemic in the Thunder Bay District. The health unit is also reporting 104 new cases, pushing the district's known active case count to 330. That's likely a drastic undercount, however, due to limited testing across the province. Hospitalizations from the district have dropped over the last 24 hours from 17 to 12, with 1 person from the TBDHU's catchment area in the ICU. A big change coming from the Northwestern Health Unit. It's no longer reporting daily case counts, but it has 211 active cases and a 7-day test positivity rate of 17.3%. 6 people from that part of the region are in hospital, including 2 in intensive care. Ontario's health minister says there are glimmers of hope in the fight against the Omicron wave. Strain on the healthcare system is still a major concern, but there is optimism that the situation will soon improve, and the province will also reportedly announce the easing of some restrictions in the coming days. Colin DeMello reports.
For the 3rd time this week, Premier Doug Ford is teasing that a positive economic announcement is coming.
We look forward to having a good announcement for restaurants and gyms and other folks that have been closed.
But neither the Premier, the Health Minister, nor the Chief Medical Officer of Health would say what those changes actually are or when the rollback of restrictions would begin, leading to more ambiguity for shuttered businesses.
Yesterday on radio, he dangled a steak in front of starving businesses saying good news is coming. And today the government has a press conference about nothing. No additional clarification, no path forward, no plan.
Sources say the Ford cabinet approved that plan late this afternoon. The government will begin to loosen restrictions on January 31st, replacing the closures with capacity limits similar to the ones that were in place in December. And the Premier is pushing for a full reopening in March, just in time for the spring budget. It's possible, Ontario's health officials say, even with record hospitalizations.
Today, we have a total of 571 COVID-positive patients in our ICUs, compared to a high of just under 900 at the peak of Wave 3.
This question is for Dr. Moore.
But a news conference to set the stage for the reopening led to questions of who ultimately was responsible for guiding this decision.
I do believe this is a government decision. We will be continually reviewing data to inform that decision, and I can't make any foreshadowing of that statement.
But the Premier is foreshadowing that statement.
Yeah, it's going to be a positive announcement that we make this week, and I look forward to it.
Critics say the Premier should have let Dr. Moore take the lead.
I think he needs to make sure that he listens to the chief medical officer and what data is saying, what science table is saying. He cannot be making decisions based on what serves his political will.
The announcement on the relaxed restrictions will take place tomorrow.
That was CTV's Colin DeMello reporting. Thunder Bay's two largest school boards have decided to alter the way they report positive COVID cases, at least for now. The Lakehead and Catholic boards say starting today, if any parent or staff member voluntarily contacts the school to notify them about a positive result from a rapid test or a PCR test, the school will email a message to parents of impacted students and school staff. Those advisories will not be publicly announced, and parents can decide how to proceed in those situations. The province previously said that school boards would only notify parents of a COVID-19 outbreak if 30% of students in a classroom are marked absent. Officials from the two boards weren't available today to comment on the move, which is being called a short-term measure. The Ontario Health Coalition is trying to pressure the Ford government to stop awarding new long-term care licenses to for-profit corporations. The local coalition held a news conference this morning to highlight the fact that companies like Southbridge are being given the green light to build a new 160-bed home in Thunder Bay, despite having the highest number of COVID-related deaths in the province. Kurt Black reports.
For Doug Ford to sit there last year and cry crocodile tears saying, I didn't understand how bad it was. That's craziness. It's absolutely crazy, because the Thunder Bay Health Coalition, the Ontario Health Coalition, Natalie Mayer and the Ontario Health Coalition have been pounding this year after year after year about the issues in long-term care.
The Thunder Bay and Ontario Health Coalitions are calling on the Ford government to prioritize allotting new beds to non-profit facilities rather than for-profit corporations. Local coalition co-chair Jules Tupker points out that Southbridge, which manages 3 long-term care homes in Thunder Bay, saw the highest pandemic death rate at 9 residents per 100. But despite that, Southbridge is being given a license for a new 160-bed facility on Clavette Street, which will replace an aging 131-bed home on Vickers Street.
They have Lakehead Manor is going to be rebuilt, and they've already found the location, so we're too late to actually stop that license being issued.
At the heart of the issue is a lack of sufficient staffing at many homes, which is an issue that has been exacerbated by for-profit facilities.
For-profit have gotten away from full-time staff because they don't have to pay benefits to part-timers. So they've created this massive number of part-time employees. And so these workers are working only part-time here or part-time. They're working in a couple of homes. So it's not a desirable place for them to be.
Making matters worse, in the past under the Long-Term Care Homes Act, it was the government's responsibility to promote long-term care services to not-for-profit organizations. But under Bill 37, this phrase has been changed to include mission-driven corporations.
And of course, every corporation, for-profit, not-for-profit, are mission-driven. So what the Ford government has done now is opened the door for for-profit corporations to be on the front line of giving services in long-term care.
The former act expressly forbid the issuing of licenses to any operator with a poor track record, but that barrier has been all but eliminated by Bill 37. Officials from Southbridge did not respond to our request for comment on the Health Coalition's report. Kurt Black, TBT News.
City Council debate over the 2022 budget got underway last night. It was the first of 4 meetings for councillors to propose and vote on potential changes, but no drastic moves were made on night 1. By the end of the evening, there was a slight drop in the tax levy increase, which now sits at 2.27% after growth. Vasilios Bellos has more.
The budget deliberations open with discouraging news that the city's actual growth in 2021 was just 0.06%. That means the existing tax base will bear the weight of any tax levy hike. Council also heard about the new infrastructure projects in the budget. They include a new accessible playground at Boulevard Lake, added pathways at Hillcrest Park, and a $2.5 million commitment for work on the waterfront trail. There will also be 4 new positions added to the engineering division through provincial funding to help close the infrastructure gap in Thunder Bay. Councillor Andrew Fold says proper staffing is crucial in carrying out these projects.
We are going to get north of $20 million of new infrastructure on the things that citizens want: roads, bridges, water, wastewater. We need to be able to operationalize this, and we need the staff to oversee it.
Infrastructure continued to be the hot topic, with it being noted Thunder Bay roads are rated a 7.9 out of 10 after a December 2021 report. This is reflected with 64% of roads falling into the fair, good, or very good categories. Director of Engineering and Operations Kayla Dixon explained where the city is looking for improvements.
Then we do have the other 30+% that are either in poor or very poor condition, and largely people would recognize that those are our residential roads that are waiting for reconstruction.
Much of the discussion surrounded what will be paid from local tax dollars versus provincial funding. Councillor Rebecca Johnson made it clear there is still a local impact, even when other levels of government are picking up the tab.
We are still paying for that. And I want the public to understand that when we say that we're getting the funding from another level of government, that's really a good thing. But at the same point in time, it is my pocket that it's coming from, or your pocket.
Long-term care, a topic brought to the forefront since the start of the pandemic, will also see increased staffing. The city's Pioneer Ridge Seniors Home will add 6 new personal support workers and convert 8 part-timers to full-time. Budget talks will resume on Thursday night. Vasilios Bellows, TBT News.
$2 million has been approved by the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund for upgrades at Thunder Bay's Centennial Conservatory. The funding will be a major help to cover the cost of a lot of necessary work at the facility. City Council will be asked on Monday night to support a $4.8 million tender to make a number of energy efficiency upgrades. Corey Nordstrom has more on that.
The conservatory's 3 greenhouses would be demolished if the city approves the $4.8 million tender by M-Builds NWO. Parks manager Corey Halverson says the greenhouses were at end of life and needed to be replaced. Rather than 3 separate builds, the city is looking at 1 large space. Upgrades also include the addition of an annex located just off of the main building.
But in behind that will be an operational space that has working tables. It will have a viewing gallery into the greenhouses itself, so you'd be able to bring small groups of people back into that area to extend the programming into that area and then ultimately into the greenhouses themselves.
To pay for the project, the city has already set aside $1.8 million in the 2021 budget to upgrade the greenhouses, with another $1 million in Renew Thunder Bay funding and $2 million from the NOHFC newly announced that will also cover other renewal costs at the conservatory. Northwood's Shelby Chung has long supported the project and was ecstatic to learn of the added funding the city has received.
We've had this conversation a number of times through the Citizen Satisfaction Survey, dating back from, I believe it's 2009. Every second year, we've asked the question, what does the conservatory mean? And it always has rated very high with the citizens of Thunder Bay.
Over $300,000 of the project's impact would be specific to 5 net zero items. Among them, new glazing would double the building's energy efficiency, saving over $100,000 in costs over 20 years.
Now we're looking at polycarbonate glazing, so we have energy efficiencies. We're also we're recommending LED grow lighting to be mixed in with the greenhouse as well, so that will give us the capacity to produce product throughout the year.
Long-term goals of cost efficiency and cost containment with infrastructure spending now, I think, is a worthy cause, and I really hope my fellow council members really see the value of something like the net zero strategy.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Faculty at Confederation College and across the province could be voting on a forced offer deal next month, and union officials are calling on their members to reject it. Local OPSU President Rebecca Ward says faculty at the 24 Ontario colleges gave the union a strike mandate in December, and they've been working to rule, hoping to spur negotiations. But talks have gone nowhere, and now the colleges have filed for a forced offer vote on February 15th and 17th. Ward is hoping the deal will be turned down, forcing the colleges to re-enter negotiations. She says there's $1.6 billion currently sitting in the college system, and says this agreement isn't about a lack of resources, but about what the colleges are choosing to do with that money.
And it should be invested in student success. It should be invested in faculty in terms of time. We're not fighting for money. We're not fighting for wages and benefits. Those are completely non-issues for us. What we're talking about really is the provision of quality education.
Ward says they're planning to hold a province-wide town hall with students in the next couple of weeks as they want to maintain that connection despite the labor unrest. OPP officers with the Armstrong detachment used a little ingenuity to help with an emergency situation this past weekend. Police were called to assist EMS and Orange Air Ambulance with a patient on Sunday night, but the flight couldn't depart as there was a problem getting the runway lights to turn on. The officers had to think quickly and creatively as the patient was waiting inside the aircraft. They came up with a plan to use flares from their cruisers to light up the runway on both sides, and that allowed the Orange flight crew to safely depart and take the patient to hospital in Thunder Bay. Well, some creative